I'm excited to have a very special guest here in our studios. He is a world-renowned opera singer, so he's got a better voice than I do, which not many do, except this guy does. Andrew Owens is with us. Andrew, we will tell the story of how we became friendly in due time, but I want to know, how does one, like, take us through your background. How do you become an opera singer? Like, where does that come from?
I think first has to come the inspiration, if you want to call it
Okay.
that. So there's always that moment when you hear it or you discover it and
Yeah.
then decide it's not just going to be something you listen to but want to do. And at the time, I was always doing theater, and then
Okay.
I heard something in 8th grade. I was actually fairly young. I was like 14. And I saw a movie with Mario Lanza. If you know that name, he is Philadelphia.
He's Philadelphian,
Philly
yeah.
born, South Philly, 6 and Christian. And so he did a lot of movies in the 50s, kind of like crossover kind of movies. He was the original crossover guy.
Okay.
And saw one of those movies, and I really just watched that movie and said, that's what I want to do. And then started taking voice lessons and kept on that path and never looked back. So I was very lucky that it worked out.
Did opera run in the family? Was anyone into that music?
No, my sister was amazing and did musical theater and was the one who pulled me on stage in
Okay.
the first place. So I got it from her.
Makes
But
sense.
I think everybody had some sort of a musical inclination in the family.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
we're Irish and everybody just sings at random moments of the day.
Randomly.
Yep, kind of what we do.
Yeah, that's what we do for sure. Okay, so that's, you're 13, 14 years old. You're like, this is kind of where I want to go, but
Yeah.
it's a totally different thing to actually make it happen.
Very
so
much so, yeah.
what's the process from there? You start, you love it, then where?
After that, usually you go to school like for anything. And so whatever your area of focus is, in my case, it was vocal performance. So I was
Okay,
going
yeah.
into that and studied in school for a while. Went to like a conservatory in Ohio and studied there. Kept going and auditioning for whatever I could. And the next step after that was getting a job. That was hard. And that's actually what made me move out to Europe. So I live there currently now, and I spent actually the better part of the last 12 years out
Okay.
in that part too. So
Where are you now?
I'm in Switzerland, in
Okay.
Zurich.
Zurich,
Yeah, so,
Switzerland.
yeah,
Beautiful over there.
it's beautiful. It's boring and beautiful.
Boring?
Yeah, very boring.
Is it really?
Very
Well, they're neutral,
I
right?
apologize to anybody
From Switzerland? I don't
Switzerland
think there's
who's
anyone that
tuning
I
in
know
there.
from there, but
Well, if I decide to share, well, I will. But if I share this and somebody reads it, come on, you guys agree with me. I know you do. Come on, seriously. No, but it's lovely. It's peaceful. It's tranquil. It's really, really wonderful.
so
but
that's a
it's very quiet.
step where you're like, I'm gonna
Kinda.
move my entire life over to Europe.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, it was always back and forth. I did some time in Chicago for a little bit. Was in Vienna for a while, which is when I was calling you,
Yep.
actually, around then.
Yep.
And we'll get to that story. I
Yeah.
promise we will. But yeah, so for the most part, it was being out there and really loving it. It was really cool there.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, so you go from Bucks County
Yep.
to Europe. You lived in Vienna. You live in Switzerland now. But this job is still taking you all over
Yeah,
the world.
yeah.
Talk about some of the places you've been thanks to opera.
Oh man, I've been to Russia. I was in Moscow for a concert. Brazil, all over Europe. Had about 3 things in China that all got canceled, unfortunately. Either an illness, there was like a very famous conductor, and the whole thing was in honor of him,
Oh, okay.
and he died. So,
Oh, my goodness.
It happens sometimes when people are of advanced age,
Sure,
so they
sure.
decided to scrap the whole project. So I'm still waiting on that. It would be really cool to go there. But no, I've been really, really, really lucky to see a lot of places I never thought I'd ever see.
What's coming up, too? You were just talking about
Yeah.
Western United States. You're trying to hit all 50 states?
Yeah, that's the plan. So I kind of told people who do all the arranging behind the scenes, I said I'd really love to sing in all 50 states if I can. And Montana just popped up, and I'm actually really excited because having now lived in Switzerland the last few years, I've really gotten a taste for the outdoors,
Sure.
as you do. So being able to go there for a little bit, right by Yellowstone, that whole area, and actually see some nature and do my job at the same time is cool. Doing something in Cincinnati this summer. It's actually a piece written by Paul McCartney.
Wow.
He wrote it in the 90s, and it was always performed in concert.
Okay.
And this is the very first time they're going to stage it like an opera.
Sure.
And Paul will be directly involved in it, which is really cool. So being able to meet one of my idols is
That's
really cool.
amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you're in Montana, will you step out to the side of a mountain and just sing
I'm totally going
out
to.
into the
It'll be like
ether?
an American Ricola commercial. It's going to be so,
I was just thinking that
so
in my
bad.
head. I love that. We actually got to see you, what was it, 5 years ago
I
or
think
so
so,
now, back
yeah.
in when you were in Philly for a little while?
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
That was pretty cool. What was that
That was
show
really
called?
cool. So that opera was called Lucia di Lammermoor. It's a really, really one of the classics of the repertoire. And we were doing that with Opera Philadelphia, and got to see you, got to go over to do a lot of stuff actually in the city, not just reconnect with people, but kind of do the news circuit a little bit. And that it was really cool because watching it as a kid, if anybody popped up on the news for 2 seconds, everybody got around the TV and said, "Look, you're gonna be on the news tonight." So actually doing the thing was I was able to tick that off, which is really cool.
Sort of how we met was through sports.
Yeah.
So background for me, those that have watched this show and don't know, I did sports talk radio for a lot of years before I got full time into television, and I worked at 97.5 The Fanatic. And one of my best callers on my program was Andrew in Austria.
Yeah.
You're a diehard Philly sports fan.
Big time.
Has it always been that way? Like,
Yeah.
because opera and sports don't necessarily, they don't come together too often, but you've made it so.
They really don't. No. It's if I have to hear one person say, "Are you watching sports ball again?" I'm just gonna. It's really frustrating. Just let people enjoy things, really. No, so it's always been that. I came from a family that loved it, and I have 4 cousins, all brothers, and they just were obsessed with everything. So there was always a season for everything, quite literally. So I had years where it was only Flyers, then only Phillies, then only Eagles, and now it's just a nice melange of everything. So kind of how it goes.
What's it like watching over in Europe? Time's a little bit weird.
Exhausting. I watched every game of the World Series run, and it was actually fortunate because I was in the middle of a show, but fortunately or unfortunately, I got COVID, so I was out of a show for at least. God, it was a long time. It was like 3-4 weeks.
Okay.
So as I was recovering, I just was at home. So I was watching every game. The start time is about 2:30 in the morning out there. So you're going from about 2:30 until sun up.
Sure.
And depending on the result of the game, I either didn't sleep for an entire day or I slept like a baby. So that was it.
It's one thing to be a crazy sports fan, which you are, which you share with a lot of people here in Philadelphia. It's entirely another to be on another continent.
Yeah.
But also to be a sports talk radio caller on the regular.
Yeah.
When did you decide to take that leap? Because it is a leap to be like, okay, I'm listening to this, I agree or I disagree, but it's another to call and be like, no, I love this, or no, I hate this.
It was, I think I'm like any person who calls into sports radio when you're driving. You hear somebody that either launch a question out to the crowd or somebody calls and you just want to rebut immediately and you're driving in the car screaming, no, and you just want to grab the phone.
Yep.
So I started doing that. And I think it was just kind of doing the rounds of like calling Mikey Miss's show or something like that. And then you, and then John Marks, and Sean Brace, and all them guys. And then when I was abroad, I invested in so Skype has something called Skype credit you can buy, and it's like doing cheap international phone calls.
Yeah.
So I would just buy a bunch of Skype credit, and I would use that to either call family or 97.5. So that was kind of my budget that I allowed that for, and I would just call it random times, and then you and John and Sean would have me do like games on the show and stuff like that. That was pretty fun.
Heck yeah, it was a lot of fun because you don't often get called. Well, sometimes you get calls from people in like North Carolina or California, transplant fans, but never in Europe. So we always thought that was the coolest thing that you were calling. And so what's the time difference over there then?
It depends where.
So you're in Austria?
I'm in Austria, or I'm in Switzerland now, but even in Austria, it was 6 hours.
Okay.
And depending on when, because we hit daylight savings at a different time, it could be 5.
Okay.
Or it could be something.
That's actually
usually
not...
6 is the standard time difference.
So, I mean, obviously now it's a little bit different. The internet is out there. So you can keep up with sports a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But what is it like for you trying to keep up with not only just on a regular basis, but you're also working quite a bit and keeping up with Philly sports in that way?
That's really tricky because usually the times here are very congenial to anybody's work schedule. Over there, it's the opposite.
Sure.
So anything that I could watch potentially, especially football games, that's at a reasonable hour, like the 1 o'clock game becomes 7 or dinner when I'm actually going on stage.
Yeah.
And so the concept of anything happening at a reasonable hour is just, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So it ends up being, and of course when the schedule went out last year and I just saw how many 1 p.m. games we had, I just was, Yeah, I was kind of upset. I
Yeah.
think there were 3 total. Or
That's
4.
kind of a bummer.
And, yeah, that was a lot of prime time.
So what's the wildest scenario then? Say you're in the middle of an opera and there's a big game happening. Do you have your phone open in the, in the back, or do you have to?
No.
You can't do it.
No. I'm doing it because they all know what happened. I had my phone in my pocket, and I had in one costume, a really long black trench coat.
Okay.
And I had it on at the very end, and I didn't have enough time. I realized it was still in my pocket, and I was supposed to run it to like the desk where they do all the calls and everything at the stage.
Okay.
Manager's desk and everything.
Because you don't want this thing to go off in the middle of a show.
That, or you don't want it to fall out of your pocket.
or that.
And that, sure enough, it was my very last entrance. I'm on stage. I'm like, whatever. It's a deep pocket. I go down on one knee, and I hear donk, 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 donk on the stage, and my phone fell out of my pocket at a really quiet moment. And yeah,
Was there a
it's the
sporting
first time
event
about-
on
first time
the phone at
there
that time?
It was an Eagles game, and it was the first time I've ever admitted this publicly. As a matter of
Really?
fact. Yeah.
This
so.
is breaking news.
It is breaking news.
What
Yeah.
happened after that?
I quietly shifted it because it fell behind, sort of.
Mm.
I shifted it back in my pocket, and I caught hell from a couple people.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Is that an embarrassing moment
Incredibly
in,
so.
in
Well, because
opera?
we pride ourselves on being artists and
Yeah.
in the character, and to do something like that and have like in an old period piece where everybody's it's this opera that was written in the 1700s, and all of a sudden a cell phone just falls on stage.
That doesn't quite make sense. Have you found, I'm sure not many, as you said, a few of them will come up to you and say, what's going on with the sports ball?
Yeah.
Any other diehard sports
Yeah.
fans in opera that you are friends with? or
There
have made friends
are
with?
not too many from our parts.
Okay, yeah.
It's a lot of
We're
people.
not
from
really an
other
opera
places.
hotbed, I wouldn't say.
No, there's a lot of singers who come up from that area actually, but not many are really. They'll watch a game.
Okay, so not like
Yeah, I
crazy like
managed
you.
to grab a good buddy of mine who's from the Northeast who was singing in the same city as me to watch the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So we got to do that.
What
in
city were
Zurich.
you in?
We were in Zurich.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was at home.
Oh, wow.
So we got to do that, and the place was overrun by Chiefs fans. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I said fans.
Fake
Yeah,
fair weather.
there were a few of those. But it was obviously disappointing. But usually I'll be able to round up somebody to be able to do it. But usually it's a lot of Chicago fans, a lot of New York fans.
Okay, fair enough.
West Coast fans. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you are at the forefront, as it would be for
Doing my best.
Philly sports fans. We are gonna do this outside, so we're gonna we'll flash to this, but
Ooh.
you're gonna sing a special song
I think so.
to us, to the city. We're gonna do it the right way, so we won't do it in here because you'll end up blowing the mics out because you have such a
can do that.
powerful voice. But talk about your Eagles fandom and how far back that goes with like what players did you love growing up? What was your,
Yeah, it was that 91, 92.
Yeah, is that
Angry. It was totally for me. Yeah, it was being able to see those guys when they were, oh my God, they would do in-store signings at like anywhere,
Modell's or
Caldor,
something?
Modell's,
Yeah,
anywhere.
Foreman Mills.
Seeing Clyde Simmons or someone like that just
Heck
pop
yeah.
up and it says Giant who's in front of you or something. But yeah, it was a lot of those guys. Who else? Weatherspoon.
Clarence Weatherspoon,
Yeah,
Sixers?
absolutely. He was
Met
there.
him.
A lot of guys. I think I met. That's all Philadelphia. But if we're sticking with the
Sure.
Eagles, then it's basically just I would say that's
That
definitely
group,
that. It was
91,
that group of
92.
guys.
Randall,
Seth Joyner,
Reggie
it
White.
was Wes Hopkins. It was
Kind of we're in the same we're the same age, so yeah, it was like that team was so what's the word, like powerful, right? Like the offense wasn't great.
Yeah.
Randall was incredible, but that defense, there was something about
Yes.
it. And I remember seeing Wes Hopkins once on South Street.
No way.
And being completely starstruck. I'm like 7 years old. It was so cool to see him. So yeah, I kind of grew up with that team as well. And then Charles Barkley was a huge fan.
totally. I
Yeah.
think it was representative of like we always say of the city and the character and the spirit of the city.
Sure.
They were tough. They didn't get pushed around.
Right.
And it's how we like to see ourselves in many ways too. So.
Does anyone ever ask you when you're over in Zurich or Vienna, wherever it might be, about like why are you such a crazy fan? Are they
Yeah.
wondering what this is?
They really don't get it. A lot of them don't get it. The ones who are really into soccer do. They
Okay,
do get it.
yeah.
Because they understand it 100%. A good buddy of mine is like a huge EPL fan. So he's a big Wolves fan, diehard and stuff like that, and there aren't many Wolves fans.
Sure.
So going to the bar with him and watching his team sometimes get stomped. I'm like, I feel it, man. I'm from
You
Philly.
know the deal.
We've done it. We've gone through that years. We were not always the hot team. So watching stuff with him or anybody who's really into soccer, they get it.
Sure.
They tend to get it.
Take this can here, a very special looking can with
There's
all these
the
cool
Gallen of
stickers.
Questions.
It's the Gallen of Questions.
There it
We got
is.
some questions in
Nice.
here. We're going to see if you can answer them to the best of your ability. So,
Oh my gosh. Is
why
it
don't
like
you jump in
trivia
there?
or is it?
It could be anything.
Oh no,
Let's
I'm
see.
nervous.
It's not trivia. It's not
Okay.
trivia. Trivia about you.
Do I read it out loud?
Yes, please.
Cool. Who is the Bryce Harper of your profession? Oh man, it's a really good one actually. Who is the Bryce Harper? Of
Who's
your
the
profession?
MVP? The guy with all the swagger that everyone's like, okay, that guy.
Yeah.
He knows what. He knows what octave to hit.
Yeah. Man,
You can say yourself. I mean,
I know.
we would know the
Definitely not.
difference.
No way. No way. I don't know. I mean, there's a few. I got to give a shout out to my good buddy who's a bass, Christian Van Horn. He's a
Christian
he's a
Van
good
Horn.
dude.
Where's he
He's got
from?
swagger. He's a Long Islander.
Okay.
He's out, I think, in Paris now, but he's a really, really good buddy. Swagger for days. Has a podcast called the CVH Podcast.
Okay.
It's very cool. Am I allowed to plug another podcast?
Absolutely. Does he sing with a Long Island accent?
Not at all. It's been, like me, it's been neutralized
Yeah, it's gone.
until he goes back home, and
Love
then it
it.
comes out of it. So yeah,
Uh,
I give him
That's a great one. Your dream job would be.
a dream job. You know what? When I was really little, I always wanted to be a marine biologist,
Oh.
specializing in cephalopods, like
Oh.
octopus, squid, and everything. I was
That's
obsessed
cool.
with them. So I'm gonna.
I'm
say
sure
that.
this is the dream job, but
It is.
outside of what
It
you're
is.
doing
It is.
now.
It is. Yeah,
All right,
but that
jump
would
in
be
there, grab
nice.
another one.
Oh, wait.
Throw that away.
I will.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll toss on the floor.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mix it up a bit.
Get in there.
What do we got? What's a big one?
Ooh.
All right. Best place you've ever seen or watched a Philly sporting event. So obviously we're not saying Philly, or we're saying location in the city.
It could be you could have been overseas and
Okay.
you remember somewhere special. Like, where is the most special place you've seen a game?
Seattle for the Super Bowl, 2018.
Yeah.
It had to be that. It was in a Philly bar in
Okay.
Seattle for that game. The time difference was great because it was midnight and we had already been celebrating for 2-3 hours.
That's
so
amazing.
that was really great. So probably, being with other Philly fans there and not just in an apartment in
Sure.
a place where nobody
Right,
goes
right,
to see it.
Yeah.
So I have to say that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Most ridiculous time that you ever had to watch a game in Europe? Like those overnight games?
Those 2:30 a.m. games are
2:30
rough. So
a.m.
anything that has an 8:30 start time. So anything prime time
Or
for
a
football,
9, yeah.
any
Jeez.
Sunday night or Monday night football is brutal, or Thursday night. They
I
are really
understand
rough.
that. I understand
Yeah.
that. You just said this. If I wasn't a tenor, I would be a marine biologist.
Yeah,
We'll go
yeah.
with that.
Yeah, we'll do that, yeah.
It's a dream job. See, it could be anything. You never know.
Totally,
Sometimes
yeah.
duplicates.
I
Even.
like these.
Let's see here. We got. What do you miss most about Philly?
There's a few things, man. Restaurants and cafes.
Okay.
It's a big one. Europe's got great food.
Yeah,
But I got to be
Not
honest.
Philly, right?
Zurich is just also Switzerland. It's not a culinary hub. It's just not. Again, I'm sorry. I love it there. It's really great. I promise.
I love you, people.
No, I'd say I've just, in the time I've been back with a couple buddies, just going to some restaurants and being like, this is just great.
The food here
Really
is-
great food.
It's unmatched, man.
I agree.
Do you own any jerseys?
Oh, yeah.
How many?
I have a lot. My Eagles
What's your
jerseys on
go-to?
rotation. I just like most everybody picked up a Kelly green.
Sure.
But I've got an old midnight green B West,
Good
black Dawkins,
one. Okay.
and I've got a Harper. I've got a Pete Rose. I have
Good
two.
list.
I have a Flyers with my name and lucky number on it, and I always wanted the jersey with my
Yeah,
name,
yeah.
and I wore it the first time to a game with my cousin.
Sure.
My cousin has season tickets, and as soon as I showed up, he made the entire section boo me. He's like, "Look at this, boo!" And just like, yeah. So I don't wear that to games anymore.
Fair enough. It's a good collection.
That's when I wear it home.
All right, start, bench, cut. Jalen Hurts, Bryce Harper, Joel Embiid. What's your
Start
list?
Bryce,
Start
especially
Bryce.
right now where we're at.
Start Bryce.
I mean,
Well, these are hard hitting questions, man.
well, can we do start bench trade? Or does it have to
well,
be
that would
cut?
have to be cut. You'd have to get rid of one.
Okay, well then if it's, I'm gonna say
Bench. Who are you benching? Who stays on the team? Hurts
if I have
bench
to,
and cutting Joel.
cut trade Embiid because there's value there. That's a tough one.
All right, you're
Yeah,
such a
that's tough.
general manager.
Yeah.
Two more. Let's see. We got most difficult song you've ever had to perform.
Okay, I'm not just saying this. It's not a cliche. The national anthem. It's actually hard.
Interesting.
Because it's nerve-wracking. You have to do it. You have to pick the right key. And then the one time I did it, I started way too high. Like, I didn't realize. And it's like, oh, if I'm going to do the old free, I am messed. I'm screwed right now.
I did not expect you to say that.
It's a little nerve-wracking. I mean, there's all this. I could name all this stuff that nobody knows
Sure,
what the heck
sure,
it is. That, or, and I'm not just saying this, but like, karaoke living on a prayer is really, really, really hard to do.
I did expect you to say that.
Yeah.
You answered this question too. Where were you for Super Bowl 52? You
Seattle.
were in Seattle,
Yeah, I was working.
Washington.
That's right.
So we knocked them all out. Andrew, this was a lot of
Nice.
fun, man.
It's a pleasure, man.
So great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being
Absolutely.
here, dude.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Hit 'em low, hit 'em high, and watch our Eagles fly, fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! That's right!